Okay, welcome to our first episode of Talking Shop. I'm your host, Louis Vargas, founder of NFCP, and I'm joined here by one of our most active collaborators, Flemming Klausen. For those that are not already aware, NFCP is a community made for people already in risk and compliance and anti-financial crime areas, or you're looking to start a career there. And we want to create a safe environment for us to learn and grow together. And this is done via thought leadership, videos, like this one, webinars, and also live events. So for more information, follow us on LinkedIn and become a member via our website, nfcp.info. And the last bit of housekeeping, the views and opinions expressed during the session are personal views and not legal advice. So please engage with your compliance officers and legal teams for specific guidance. All right, and before I let Flemming introduce himself, I just want to give a quick shout out to Spectre for allowing us to use their awesome recording studio. And without your support, this couldn't be possible. And now, for Flemming, for people that don't know you, what's your elevator pitch?
Yeah, I can say I have a long background. I have 28 years in law enforcement, the last 14 years as detective inspector, a state prosecutor service in serious economic and international crime. When I say economic crime, is financial crime. It's the most of us know it. And then in 17, I moved to the financial industry, and where I've been with 4 big institutions. And now I try to give all my knowledge to everybody who want to listen and want to have the support from my RBA advisory.
Yeah. And so that's how we met. We worked at one of these big banks in the region. And then we also shared the stage a few times, local speaking events.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we want to get into a bit today when we're talking shop is, kind of let you guys into a bit of the conversation Flemming and I have together when we're just having a coffee or a pint together. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So what's the status of the anti-financial crime scene and prevention after 30 years, give or take, of regulation? I'm curious how you view that.
Yes, very short. It's not good enough. And from my young age, I'm taught that good enough is not okay and okay is not good enough. Mm-hmm. So, but always think that we have to consider it compared to what. So, of course, if we go back 30 years ago and look at how was the compliance and the financial crime prevention set up at that time, yes, we have progressed heavily. But that's not what we have to compare ourselves against. It's what we are really trying to fight and prevent is the financial crime, and that is developing heavily. So I can say I'm not so more into that question. I'm more into why are we not there yet? So and I can say this is for me the biggest question.
Right. I mean, like you said, we've made progress. Maybe it's not the best situation yet, but I guess how do you, like, if, speaking to upper management and the board, we can't make changes right away, right? It's the progression and being pragmatic. I guess how you see those conversations going? Because at least for me, it's very much, we're doing the best we can. We'll put a Band-Aid here and there. We'll try to get to it all later. But do you ever get to it later? I don't know. So I don't know. How do you see kind of getting to where you feel it should be?
Yeah, I have to say the root cause for me, and always look at the root cause. Not as many do, they try to measure the symptoms. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people also, when they got the regulation, they look at what is the symptoms you see, and then they try to sort it out. But what is really look at is the root cause. Mm-hmm. And exactly what you are stating there is just showing some part of the root cause. Mm-hmm. Because the root cause is the mindset is not there yet, even all these years. And I can give a little example to something completely different. Mm-hmm. When in the 80s, it would become fashion with value-based management, and in the government it was in the start of 2000. We are a little late there in that part, but it was all about, we have policies, we make instruction, we have a lot of training, and very few companies today manage to really live value-based management. And why? It's because also at that time, and everybody knew it, all the heavy and very expensive consultants knew, it was about culture. And I think what is a lack of in the financial crime prevention environment is we need that culture change. Mm-hmm. It have never happened. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of regulations, and then we came and then we just tried to follow that, and the most of the time we maybe because we don't have the really understanding on what is financial crime, we try to find out how little we can do or how less we can do. So the authorities, supervisors are happy. So there I see there is the issues, So yeah, we're not there. The mindset is a cultural element, and it also based on knowledge of financial crime, and that is where I think the key hole is. We are not there yet because of it.
Right. And you called it the root cause. I call it something slightly different, the fundamentals, right? We don't understand, like you said, we don't have the full grasp at times of what the regulation is or the law is. So we just try to quickly do something and just to keep them off our back instead of taking a pause and saying, okay, but what's really required here? Right. So I think it's also understanding the root cause, understanding the fundamentals, and then you could train up effectively, and then you could communicate more effectively to the business. Right. Because I think a lot of the challenges we get, and I know you've said on both sides of the fence, is that, when you're trying to discuss these issues with the business, they challenge right away. And it's also because it's more work, obviously, but also it's because maybe us as compliance officers are not communicating what needs to be done effectively. So then the natural reaction is to push back because they could tell that we don't fully understand. I don't know. How do you see that?
But that is the truth. You can give another example. When the first AML directive arrived, it was against financial crime. There was no wording called tax crime, nothing. And then everybody say, okay, it's not tax crime. But tax crime is also financial crime. That's because we don't understand it. So why they escalating the regulation that we have so much focus on is because we try to find what I don't like, loopholes. I hate that word. But then they have to write into the next directive tax. So everybody knew that was tax. Right. But they also have to write fraud and so on. And it is also financial crime. Yeah. So you can say, why are we getting all this regulation? And not even take the root cause, as you call it, the fundamental part. I call it a bias, and bias is very difficult. That's why when I predicate all my views and my opinions, I know that I cannot teach you anything. But I hope that I can reflect something in you, so you need to think, that maybe that's an idea, maybe you have to think, because the changes in biases or the structure came from inside and out. Like to make it grow in the company, it came from the top to the bottom. And we need to know that the top management, the CEO, CFO, the board, are more or less generalists in financial crime. Right. But they need to support way more than they do. It's not a burden, the regulation. It's just because we have not really understood it. So you can say, now we're talking about easing the regulation, but that will not really help us to fight financial crime, because financial crime is a heavy burden for the society. And we need to understand in our bias that if the society have a better capital foundation, that means less financial crime. We cannot defeat everything, but less financial crime. Then the nutrient for the business is bigger, and therefore also more work. And then it reflects us that we can go to work and so on. We need to understand this is a united force. Right. I don't blame the companies only, the private sector. No. I also blame the authorities where I have been, because they also lack of understanding. And they also lack of resources and technology and competences and whatever. So you can say we, on both sides, we all not have really understood how important it is to fight financial crime. That's my opinion.
No, it's so true. And I feel like I feel like the main point is when you go by the letter of the law, which some people try to say we need to stay strictly by the letter of the law, then I feel like you're missing a lot. And that's why I feel like we've spoke about this a lot too, understanding the spirit of the law, because that's where we need to be, not just going verbatim what's in the regulations, because then you're going to be missing out on a lot of things. And I think it dovetails into the next question is, you talked about, lowering the regulation. A lot of people complain that, this field is too highly regulated. You mentioned you feel like it's lowering it won't ease any pains. It might increase issues. How do you feel we can solve for that?
Yeah, a little about this is still silos. But there's silos all over. There is the investigation part, there is the supervision part, there is the private sector, the bank, and also pharmacy and insurance and pension and whatever out here. They are working in silos. They are a little afraid to expose themselves. The private to the authorities, if we expose what we're seeing, maybe they will come and investigate us, right?
Exactly.
And on the other side, they see everything, and they also see what really go for court, what evil will be convicted, but they don't tell it.
Right.
They don't really tell the truth because they think they will use it for crime. So we are standing in silos and looking at each other. So I think, we have to be way more open, and we are far away from being open, but we need to be way more open. And therefore, I also say this one to understand what is an expert. The expert needs from what is crime and also what it will end up to be a conviction. And that's why you also see there a lot of complaining about SAR and STRs, and they say they develop so many and nothing happened. Right. But we cannot compare in that way. I have said that many times also on LinkedIn, is that it's not how it works. But maybe we should look to ourselves. Some are doing it to avoid the evil eyes from the authorities.
Right.
But I have to say that if the suspicious activity or suspicious transaction is not explained of why it's suspicious, it have no value for the authorities. Absolutely no. So you can overfloat the FIUs with this and then say we do whatever we can and the authority don't do anything. But it's because it's useless information. Yeah. I give an example. You can have a guy, he pay everything at the right time, the mortgage, the cost of living and his son's school and even a sports club, and suddenly he buy 2 million value both from the Emirates. It could be something, but just stating that he do that suddenly, that he have not really told us that he want to do it, that's not suspicious. It's just a vision for him. So we need to know the custom way better than we do. And they also speak with it way more than we do, because then we also will understand this have nothing to do with anything. Don't make a STR on this one. It's nothing.
No, it's so true. I feel like a lot of what you mentioned, I feel like it's requiring a revolution in the way we look at things and the way we work, right? Because, and it's not my thought, I've also read about this on LinkedIn, other people have mentioned it, is that we have to think about new ways of working. Because the structures that are currently in place weren't built for this time of how dynamic regulations are or how smart or technologically advanced the criminals are. So we have to embrace the changes and also move forward in our way of looking at this to also get ahead. And you mentioned breaking down silos. I've heard people talk about, we need more kind of compliance officers with a 360 view. Because then they could spot red flags and, adjudicate them accordingly or know where to escalate. We talked about tech being more involved in this evolution, right? Having the 360 view. How? Because it pulls in the data from the full customer life cycle. But yeah, my feeling is that nobody wants to be a first adopter. Nobody wants to jump out of the box and say, let's try something new. Maybe for a short time work in parallel with the old way of working and let's try these new things. It might fail, it might work, but we could tweak on the way and still keep up with our, standard setup. And then once we feel comfortable, we could introduce it to, as you mentioned, talk a bit more openly with the competent authorities and say, hey, we're looking at doing it like this. That might raise their eyebrow in a positive way, not negative way. But also that line of communication is not always open. I feel like recently I was speaking to somebody in the Finnish authorities and his approach is very open. But you talk to other Nordic competent authorities and they don't have that same open door policy. And sometimes those communication could be more, from what I've heard, I've never been a part of them, but more kind of authoritative than friendly in all instances. So I think you mentioned a lot of things there, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head. We have to kind of really rethink our approach. But then also the local authorities have to be open to these conversations. Not that they will fully stamp what we're doing, but we learn from each other. We could understand what they're worried about, we could help educate them, right? Because it's a two-way street. They, like you mentioned, they also don't know everything or how to handle everything. We're kind of learning almost at the same time, or maybe we might know more than them, but they have to be open to that communication.
True, and I think it's what we have learned of the past, or we should have learned, is that even our business is too stiff. Our compliance governance is too stiff. But
Right.
it's probably really good at 30 years ago. You see all this expert and specialist in KYC, in TM, in sanction screening and all on. They are all silent.
Exactly.
And KYC don't know what to look for if they don't know what is needed to get convicted, right? They need to know everything.
Exactly.
So they cannot be that. So I also advocate for that. Stop all this certification, except if you are in the beginning of a phase to learn something. Get it to get the foundation.
Right.
Perfect. But when you are into it, I worked with for a while, the best education is to work in all the different units there are. And because in that way, also you generate your own experts. I was in the State Prosecutor Service, I created my own half-year turnus in a big Danish bank to see how they operate. I did it myself. And therefore I knew how it was operated very early in my time as an investigator.
Right.
So it's way easier to understand the whole part. We should do the same. And I think, when we break down these silos and understand that we need an expert and a journalist and a specialist in all teams with different views of stuff. First there, we will go to a better place. But I can also say towards the business. Today is business is like you're adding compliance because it's an obligation. But instead, you should have the vision. If you are owner a company, you have a vision. That's fantastic. We need that. And you have a great brain for that, to have a vision of a business, right? But then you put in right away compliance. That's the first step. Because then you create the frame wherein you can have your business. And then you created the setup with products and services and whatever. After that, then you will always generate an ongoing concern. But it's not like that. The compliance is adding because they need to. And therefore it will be considered as a burden. But it's not really a burden. It's a gift because it will make you ongoing concern. You can see now that geopolitics is changing all over the world. You need to be very dynamic, flexible. And where do you get the whole support? In the finance, in the compliance. That is where it happened. Because there you can easily say, okay, with this one, where can I go? And compliance, financial crime prevention, they can tell you, this market is open with these conditions. Fantastic, isn't it? It's generate more. But what we see now, we are more locked. You can see some get locked in Russia when they locked down there. And they try to, the islands and where it really didn't work, right? And then they come also reputational risk. That is maybe more severe than the fine from the authorities, especially in Denmark.
Right.
Because we are not so happy to charge any senior management. And that is because we need to change the regulation, for sure. But I see that the mindset is so important, and I completely agree. We need to rethink it. We need to break down, put everything in a bag, shake it, and let's see what's the best. But for now, it's the old structure, the old hierarchy in organization that's ruling, and it really don't work. And we also have to be aware financial crime is always ahead. We need to be up in speed. We need to be able to develop. We need to see crime methods before it's stated in the regulation. Because it's a financial crime. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to be aware, and you have to stop it right there and inform the authorities so they can get that. Because it takes maybe 4 or 5 years from scratch to you really have a regulation. So you cannot wait. And you cannot say, I don't care, no regulation, because it's a united front against financial crime.
Yeah.
So therefore, sorry, but I have that passion for that. I like it that we have to be united, but there's no unitedness.
No, for sure. And there's also a big disconnect. I know we've been talking more about internally within compliance teams, but even I feel like there's a disconnect with society, right? Because there are some banks that educate their own customers, but again, there's no kind of 360 view on how to avoid being a victim of financial crime, how to spot the red flags. It's very sparse and disproportionate. So then it makes our jobs even harder because there's people who are falling victim to it every day, and nobody's perfect, right? I mean, it could happen to anyone, but still, if we're doing our best to educate ourselves and safeguard what we're in charge of, I think there is also a duty for society to also learn. And where do they get that from? I think local politicians need to be involved in that, right? Because they need to fund this education. It shouldn't be just banks deciding, oh, at this time we're going to educate our customers. No, it should be kind of a holistic approach.
Completely agree. I can tell. Hopefully are going to teach my sons in 6th grade class about financial crime prevention. And yes, maybe somebody get a very bad idea, become criminal. Yes, that could be. But it would also, manipulate you because it's kind of manipulation we need to do. Coaching or mentoring, you can call it whatever you like. That is the part, because when I believe in biases, it's already stated more or less before you come to school. That is the foundation. And we can get another element is the traffic act. Speed limits is something that you can adjust yourself, right? But the regulation is very clear.
Right.
Over and under. There's nothing else. But you say, of course I can go over the limit. But you cannot. But already there you see that we, with our biases, always judge ourselves what is really criminal, not criminal.
Always testing the limits, the boundaries, right?
Yeah. So and therefore, I think we should go to the root cause. Go back. Don't consider it as a burden. It's a gift that somebody wants to tell us what we should look at, because now we don't know. Go back and see. We need to learn. We need to learn what is financial crime, and I think it's a great idea. Politicians, they're also generalists. Even they make laws and regulations, they don't know it. They're sitting in the justice department, and they found out. These people are clever, go to school for many years, but have they faced crime cases? Not really. So maybe we should interact and become way more, diverse in our units, way more diverse than we are today. But I'm afraid, I have to say that now you see how the world is, even with state leaders and so on go on, and just separated people. If you have another opinion, you're just shamed out, or you're fired, or whatever. And I think that is really the worst thing that can happen in the fight against financial crime.
It's true. I think it's, we need to find out who and wants to take up the fight, right? Because they have their own priorities based on, their constituents who live in the areas that they represent, or the lobbyists that are, putting funds in their pocket. I know that's not much of a big thing here in Denmark, but more an American thing. But yeah, we have to figure out how to, like you said, educate also the politicians so that they could see there's a need for this. But I feel like, they are trying to prioritize kind of the messages they have, just like I feel like new companies and startups do, right? It's all about scalability, right? So it's all about getting the product, getting customers, and then compliance is after. So the politician is like, okay, I have to, satisfy the people who are going to vote for us. And then, maybe we'll try to build in some framework for them to really protect themselves later. Yeah, I don't know how we do that. But I think, who knows, maybe we could come up with some clever ways, mindsets.
But I think now, you escalate in technology, for example, AI is kind of the one who will save the world, and the one who have followed me will know that I don't believe so, because you need expert in the end, and also in the beginning, by the way. But that will cause a severe risk to us, because there is this illicit data manipulation that will be, forced into all these data searchers, and it will blurry the picture completely. You can see we don't really understand AI. Not many do.
Nope.
And we not really understand, for example, crypto, or can I call it virtual assets instead. And therefore we just say, and because we don't have it on our portfolio, the VA, then we just say criminal. But it's not criminal. It's not more criminal than, the traditional banks.
Right.
It's just because we don't understand it.
Exactly.
But if we understood it, we will also be better to mitigating risk, and also make sure that financial crime is not also overfloating the VA area. But I have to say, in Europe, the MiCA is from 2024. Is very new in the regulation, or whatever we should call it. That will come way more, of course. the traditional banks have been regulated for many decades, and we're not there yet.
No.
So it's difficult for me as an expert to blame anything towards the VASP as well. It's very difficult for me to blame them anything because go back in time and see the financial institutions.
Right.
So I think we need to learn to understand.
Yeah.
And that is what I also think. We hope that everybody will be open about it, because and also explain that, okay, I don't know it, but I'm really good at this job and this instruction, and you are needed. But to understand why and how it ends, that's maybe not the person's.
You mentioned something, data. I think we can have a whole episode just on data. So don't get me started. But that it just drives me crazy. I feel like the predicament all companies are in when it comes to data and the cleanliness of it, understanding it, the lineage and everything, and ensuring that it's doing the right thing in and out of the systems. It just hurts my head thinking about it. But I think, I just don't understand why people can't get it right, or spend enough money and resources to fix it. Because once you do that, that helps us down the line. It helps understand the customer better. It helps us figure out when something's actually wrong, if fraud is being done, if there's something that's really out of character or not. But the data...
We have for decades talked about data quality. Why should AI help?
Yeah, that's true.
Because we still lack of the quality of the data. So that is true. Don't go into that.
Yeah, that's another
conversation. The future for this one is that I see some company build more or less, you can call it a nice Lego tower.
Okay.
And if you put it in a corner, it will stay longer, but it will collapse if the foundation is not in place. And the foundation is and will ever be financial crime prevention or anti-financial crime experts or whatever. You can call it many things. And if that is not solid and really supporting the company, the tower will not, it will collapse once in a while. And you see it, because and it is not about you need to have the capital for it. No, you can do it with less funding as well. But you can see big companies who have faced these severe cases, they keep on jumping into these cases. Why? It's because of this tower. The foundation is still not in place.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many things. I feel like that's another conversation. How to build a proper foundation, the fundamentals, as I mentioned earlier, right? I think that's another one that we could really dive deep into, and what we can do to strengthen that. I mean, just really quickly, one of the things is, as you said, fully understand what our purpose is, right? And also the new people coming into the game. Hopefully there's some youth coming in and they're taking the certifications, as you said, to get that groundwork. But a lot are not, right? They come in, they're hired for a job, sometimes higher than their experiences. I mean, I hear, especially out of the United Kingdom, very young people in their career hired as MLROs. It's like, do they know what they're getting themselves into? Do they know what they're actually signing up for? I understand people getting a break in their career and trying to do more, but they're now liable if something goes wrong. And I just feel like we're not doing enough and not you and I, of course we're doing a lot, but others are not doing enough to really train up the newer people, but also figuring out the right training that we need. I mean, we've been in it a long time, but we both agree we don't know everything, right? So what training do we need? What tailored training do we need? And not these tick the box exercises. So I think that's a very key thing in this industry, how to keep learning, how to keep growing efficiently, right?
Yeah, and the one we put into specific position as experts, as generally, they need to have hard skin and they need to have courage more than anyone else, because they have to say, this is a bad idea. And and the one you tell it to, they see earning in billions. And you say, this is a bad idea. And in the worst case, you can be fired. You need to face that. And that's how the job is. But you need to have the courage. And I think, while we put so many young people in, that is nice. A lot of young people is more energy. But I think they don't have the courage to say, hello, manager, or hello, CEO. That's a no-go. And I also have to say there is no education I have been aware about yet until now, today, regardless master, or you can find everyone, professor. I don't care. There are no one who are teach in how not to do it. how to be real proper criminal. That is only experience. And that is, as you said, you need to know everything of this element to be the expert.
Right.
And when you have this expert in your organization, I think you need to listen.
Yeah.
Also, because maybe you should learn, we should learn, and it's a lifetime learning, right?
Exactly.
It's never ending. But also the other part, they need to listen.
Yeah.
But that is also something that's lacking because, of course, we're only human, right?
Exactly. Well, Flemming, I mean, we've talked a lot about things, and I think we could keep going, but unfortunately, we'll have to call it a day for this session. But hopefully, I can have you back.
Yeah,
Hopefully. Maybe it won't be me interviewing next time. Maybe you'll be interviewing somebody next time. I don't know. This is very fluid. So as I mentioned, this is the first episode. But again, a huge thank you, Flemming, for joining us and speaking openly about your feelings on these topics. Also, Spectre for, essentially sponsoring this session, or we call it powered by Spectre, right? Because we're using their facilities. So thank you very much, Gabby and the team from Spectre. And just to kind of end on this note, if you have any questions, suggestions, concerns, feel free to contact us at nfcp.info or info@nfcp.info. You could also follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to us there. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you for watching. Have a great day and be well.
Yeah. Have a great day.